Today's talk is a continuation of the Our UU Values series. Dolores Miera will be covering justice. Dolores is currently the president of UUCC and was one of the founding members back in 2008. She is serving a lifelong sentence, a position on the finance committee with Janet Cooper. Dolores has been part of the backbone of this community these past 17 years, focusing as a champion of social justice issues and concerns. Dolores.
Good morning. Good morning, students of Unitarian Universalism. This morning we began with a reflection on one of the 6 newly adopted values of Unitarian Universalism that were recently adopted by the UUA General Assembly in 2024. Last time I was with you, we looked at love at the center of our values. Oh, what happened to our sign? Where's our sign? Is that out in the front room? Yeah, can you get that? Okay, here. Sorry. No, not that one. There should be like a bigger one. It's in a frame. We're well prepared. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Just put up at the front down there. Thank you. Right here. Does it? Uh-huh. Can you see that? Yeah, they can see that. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, that's good. Well, it might fall, so maybe it over there. Okay, thank you. So we're looking at love, which we looked at the center of our values, and today I'll be reading a reflection on the value of justice by the Reverend Mark Davies as he delivered it on January 7th, 2025. Ignore my little helpers down there. And afterwards, time permitting, and I think there will be time because this is fairly short, I'd like to open up a short discussion on your thoughts of justice and what it means to you and what it means to you here at UUCC. So, let us begin. In relation to the value of justice, the UU General Assembly affirmed that the value of justice is working to create diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all can thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. So that's in our new UUA bylaws. Okay. So the moral mandate for justice does not lie in what one has achieved or what wealth or power one has accumulated. It lies in the equal and inherent sacred worth of each person, the rights that each and every person has, and it's our moral duty to respect them. Sadly, the concept of justice is often used to protect the status quo and control people rather than to treat all persons in a just way. This is extremely obvious in our criminal justice system, in which the rich and powerful are rarely held to account for their misdeeds, and in which the vulnerable often have little recourse to experience true justice. It can also be seen in the laws and procedures that the wealthy and powerful put into place to protect their power and profits. For the poor and the vulnerable, a warped concept of justice is used to keep them in their place. This is why so many who cry out for justice so often find that their justice is denied. The reason the wealthy and powerful have issues with an emphasis on social justice is because justice, at the very least, requires equal opportunity for all, and equal opportunity is not what made them wealthy and powerful. We have been conditioned to accept injustice by believing the lie that there is not enough for all of us to flourish. A sure symptom of societal sickness is when we make heroes out of hoarders of wealth. Martin Luther King was aware of this societal sickness when he wrote, "There is nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we now have the resources to get rid of it. There is no deficit in human resources. The deficit is in human will." Martin Luther King from Where Do We Go From Here? There are also many in our society who want to ignore the injustices of the past and even to erase them from our history, but not teaching about the injustices of the past simply perpetuates them into the present and future. If we ever want true justice to become a reality, it is imperative to realize that a society will never experience justice without equality of access to education and health care, equal protection for all persons under the law, equal accountability of all persons to just laws, and the preservation of a livable climate. It is important to see that true liberty is inseparable from justice, as justice provides the context in which freedom can be expressed in ways that are responsible to all other persons. Justice channels our will to freedom in ways that respect and enhance the freedom of others. In our deliberations on justice, it is also important not to limit ourselves to justice in the human community, but to ask ourselves how we may act justly in the community of all life on earth. Although the cultivation of justice requires commitment by individuals to act justly towards one another, a truly just society can only exist through the establishment of systemic justice supported by community-established policies and laws that protect the rights and welfare of both human and other than human life. At its core, justice is about relationships and the rights and respect that we are due in those relationships. If justice is to be established and preserved, it requires robust systems that intentionally cultivate respect toward others and protect our rights as we relate to one another within community. At its core, justice is a relational act and commitment. We strive for just relationships among individuals. We strive for just relationships within society by cultivating social justice that entails racial justice, gender justice, and justice for persons regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identities. We strive for just relationships within our economic systems by cultivating economic justice, and we strive for just relationships with the ecological community by cultivating environmental and ecological justice. And in 2024, we have experienced the warmest year on record. The top 10 warmest years on record have all been in the last decade. We must be cognizant of all forms of social justice are unsustainable without climate justice. It's sadly not a surprise that so many persons are expressing themselves politically in irrational ways around the world. Though there are many reasons for this, the core reason is the underlying social and ecological unsustainability of our current global economic practices. When wealth inequality in the human community and our relationship with our ecological community become as unsustainable as they currently are, irrational and desperate political expressions, though deeply tragic, are predictable. The only way to improve the current state of affairs is to deal with these underlying conditions, which is increasingly difficult to do given the widespread irrational political expressions. It's a vicious cycle, but we must continue to look for ways to break it, to move toward a sustainable future. We will never have lasting peace unless we address the gross economic injustice of wealth inequality, both domestically and globally. The good news is that Unitarian Universalism recognizes this and holds up justice as one of its 6 shared values. Together, if we work for justice for all, for both humans and other than human life, we might be able to bring a little bit more of our vision of beloved community into reality. May it be so. And now I would like to entertain your input about our shared value of justice. Maybe answer questions like, what are we at UUCC doing to work toward a just community? And Randy will give you the microphone, okay, so you can raise your hand. You might think about our democratic elections, our sustainability and our purchases, our cups, our plates, and the reason we don't have perked coffee every week, right? Our scholarship program, and I'm just naming some of the stuff here. Social Justice Committee, we participate in food bank assistance, outreach to the financially insecure and assist others in need, bring awareness of unjust issues happening locally and in the world. Do we covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression? Question mark. Do we support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregation and society at large? And what are you doing to work toward justice in the world?
Can't hear everybody?
No.
Oh, okay. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Okay.
He'll come to you, Claude, if you want. Yeah, you can stand though, that'd be good.
I was very concerned about justice as a youngster.
I don't think that's live.
Okay. In high school, I was being taught by Jesuits, all boys school in Los Angeles. And I wondered about other people, especially the black people. So many black people were being in our jails. Why are they in our jails? I wondered, what are they really like, the ones that are not in jail? So one Sunday I walked into Watts and there was a Baptist church and they were having, a congregation that was praising the Lord. That was the most exciting church event I ever attended. Everybody was in their pews, moving and dancing to music, and there was a band up front, and it was really fun for everyone, and they were expressing joy. And when I walked in that door, I wasn't sure how I would be accepted, but they accepted me with open arms, and they said, "Come, and you can come again if you want." So that was joy. But then I taught in an all-white school. I was a teacher. I had a music class, and in Santa Fe Springs, the kids did real well, and I knew they had the opportunities. But then I went to Pasadena, and I decided, the superintendent asked me, "Can you work in a black school?" I said, "Sure, I'll work in an all-black school." So the kids I found out, I asked them, how are they living? They lived in railroad cars, illegally, a lot of them. And their families were broken up and whatnot. But I knew there wasn't justice just from that experience. And I couldn't help them. I could help the kids that had some means and had steady families and strong relationships. But the important, real justice starts with a good, strong family, too. That helps a lot. Anyhow, that's my view on justice.
Who else would like to? Yeah, Sue?
First of all, I'd like to commend the men's group, the UU's men's group, because they've been standing out there with those, some of them, you know, who choose to stand outside with their signs that say we support our immigrant community. And, you know, it's been in the newspaper and it hasn't said UU because we really don't take a stand on some of that publicly. But I commend them for taking those steps. And for myself, I think I've tried to do something that's really hard. And that's with my two brothers who are really on the opposite side of the spectrum politically. I've tried to always just come back in conversation about it's all about how we treat people. So that's, you know, that little mantra is about all that makes me feel good, at least putting that out there to others that are maybe not on the same thought level.
Any other inputs on any of the issues or justice issues? There's so many. A while back, Kat was saying to me, she goes, oh my God, I looked up justice and there's like so many kinds of justice, right? Social, economic, I mean, racial, right? Yeah, gender, everything. There's just so much that's unfair. Right? I mean, it all comes down to the unfairness. I'm sorry, Maria.
I just want to follow on. I just want to follow on the family concerns that I have, because it's in the families that we learn to respect each other. And from a young child, if you're, you know, abused or in some way put down for whatever you are, that can breed a blame, a self-blame that is about contempt, okay, feeling contempt. And I do believe that the differences that are in the family are the training ground for understanding that self-blame and contempt just devolve into disrespect of others. So it's a projection that gets built in that needs to be overcome, because we have to love ourselves first before we can love others. We have to respect ourselves first before we can respect others, and that is not taught. That has to be experienced, and that's a big job. And the more conscious we have parents that understand that kind of child rearing, the better we'll be off. But to live in poverty, I mean, it just permeates the self-blame, because it's all about loss and not seeing that you matter. So it grieves me that there are so many children that grow up in those conditions.
Is this okay? It's working. Yeah, this is a tricky, excuse me, a tricky subject. When you try to actually say what justice is, I think there's an interesting dialogue in Plato about that as well. So it's possible to take multiple positions. So I was just thinking about, as you were talking, part of the idea of justice is the concept of fairness. But then there's another idea too, and they don't necessarily work together. So where I'm headed is, I think we need to bring compassion into the picture. Because if you take, and there is the idea that justice involves people getting what they deserve. Okay, but if I deserve to be punished, is that really what we want to be talking about? So there's that issue. And the idea that, oh, they get their just desserts. In fact, you know, from the Calvinist point of view, it's quite just that the poor should be poor, because clearly they're sinful and they're getting what they deserve. So it's not a simple matter, but I think the Buddhists have it if you talk about compassion, then you don't have to deal with some of those other issues as what one person's justice is another person's injustice. Because you can have compassion for the person who is getting what they deserve. And that's important. So that's where I want to, oh, and the other thing, just as a final touch, there's been, I've encountered, I don't know the rest of you, my mom was into early childhood education. And she had made the comment, and then also I'd read about it, where it seems to be that most humans, not everybody, tend to be born with an innate sense of fairness. Little kids without any special indoctrination can say, oh, that's not fair, or that is fair. And that seems to be kind of universal. I mean, there are humans who don't have that, but most of us do. And this, again, so the idea, there's justice on the one side, which does imply punishment. There's fairness, which does not imply punishment, that you get your share of whatever society has to offer. I think that's enough of my sermon. So,
Yeah.
Andy, would it be possible to go back to the put the on the screen the statement from the UUA regard? Thank you. I want to read this. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our associations, and society at large. And I want to applaud us because I think we do a great job at UUCC of using our democratic inclusive processes, which are sometimes not easy to do, but we do it. And so we get to practice and then take that into the society at large where we don't always see it happening. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to pipe in?
I'm looking at no hands raised right now, but everyone's listening intently.
Okay. Any other input from anyone? Any comments? I knew there'd be. Yeah, right.
Is this on? All right. It's a very simple statement. I think that I look at justice by putting myself in the other person's shoes. It has to do with compassion. It has to do with empathy. But it has to do with just simple right and wrong. And if you put yourself in the other person's shoes, you can begin to understand if they feel wronged, if they feel vindicated. And it's just a very simple process. Put yourself in someone else's shoes.
And then we'd have time for like one more.
I'll make it short. My daughter will be here next week, but I'm going to ask her to speak about her work. Now, she's training a young musician who she has tried at the hospitals where she works to be a medical professional. And the next step is going into the prisons. And he will be going into prisons and helping the inmates that need help. And I don't know how big this is going to get, but it has been successful in the past. I know one individual that even formed a little music ensemble in the prison, and it worked, the people that were there. But it's important to raise the spirits of the people that are in prison. They really do need help of all kinds.
In relation to that, the Unitarians have the Church of the Larger Fellowship, it's called, and you can get that online. And it's the biggest congregation because it's online, and so many incarcerated people belong to it, and they have these great monthly newsletters that come out with it. And so know that we have a prison ministry.
I was just going to say, yes, I do part of that. And they do, if you sign up, you can be a pen pal for UU in the prisons. So it's a beautiful thing to understand if we're talking about empathy and understanding. I keep looking at this picture and I see justice as just ice. It's just ice. And then we have love. We have a flame. So it's ice, and we have love that burns the flame. And then I don't think UUs do anything that's unintentional. So there's something about moving from justice to love to equity in this picture. And I think equity then moves from equity to love to justice. And I think that that's very intentional and very meaningful to create more movement. It takes the flame of love and then equity, and then it continues the movement. So that's my hope for this time.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Really appreciate that.